All right, I've come to the Fort Verde State Historical Site in Arizona. So let's go in and look at this historic fort. It's quite different from forts on the East Coast. Now, when you come to this fort, you notice there are no walls. There's the parade ground, and the buildings on the other side of the parade ground are gone. Only a few buildings from the old officers' row are left here for you to see. So let's move into the fort and take a look. Now, the first building that's still left on the post is the commanding officers' quarters. So let's walk down there and take a look. The building next to that is the Bachelor officers' quarters, and the last building on this row is the surgeons' quarters. They had two married officers' quarters, but they're both gone now. All right, let's go in and take a look at the commanding officers' quarters. All right, let's go into the commanding officers' quarters. And we'll turn to the right. And you can see they have the bedroom set up in here for the commanding officer. And you can see by the dress there, his wife would live with him in the place. Now let's go into the commanding officer's living room and look around. They have a pipe organ over there, some nice furniture, and a stove for heat in the building. You can see behind the wall there the adobe bricks that this place is made out of. All right, now let's go up the stairs. And once you come by here, you can stop and take a look at the adobe brick behind the wall that the place is made out of. Let's continue up the stairs. And just like on the first floor, there are two rooms up on the second floor. Here's the first room, which is an upstairs bedroom. And they have a small piano in the corner here. All right, now let's go across the hall and take a look at the last room, which is set up as a children's room because the officers would bring their families here. Now let's go out back and see what's behind. And there's actually more building back here. They have the entrance to the dining room back here, which I couldn't see in the first part of the officers' quarters. And they've got the table set up for dinner. And behind the dining room is another room. And here's that last room we saw through the dining room. And of course, each building has its own outhouse. This one has multiple seats, including a child seat. Now that's interesting. All right, now here's a good view of the backside of the commanding officer's quarters. Also here we can see the hills behind the fort and the fort garden. Now that we've finished with the commanding officer's quarters, now let's move on to the Bachelor officer's quarters and take a look at that building. I believe we can go inside this one too. All right, now we turn and go into the living room, which actually this is a bedroom for more than one officer. Bunk on one side of the room and another bunk on this side of the room. Now, let's go across the hall. And we can see another room in the quarters. That's interesting. They have a big bathtub in the back corner there. And a fancier bed. And the wind just blew the door shut and made quite a racket. All right, now let's go out the back and find one more room in here. And this looks like the dining area. And they have one room behind the dining area. This room also connected to the first room we looked at. All right, now coming around the back of the building to see if we can look in that last room that we saw. And sure enough, there's a back door. And we see we have another bunk back here. And it looks like this is the kitchen for this quarters. We've been in the commanding officer's quarters and in the bachelor officers' quarters. The two married officers' quarters buildings that used to be here are gone, so we can't go into those. The interesting thing is that the Buffalo soldiers were here, and so far I haven't seen any quarters related to the Buffalo soldiers. But now we're heading to the surgeon's quarters, so let's go look at that. All right, here we come up to the surgeon's quarters. So let's go inside here and see what we see. This is another one-story building. So we'll all right, in the surgeon's office here, we see lots of bottles, a desk. He's got a wheelchair and a table with a lot of surgical instruments in front of it. And then in the corner here, we have an examining chair. Quite interesting. Now let's go into the surgeon's living room. The surgeon lived quite a bit better than the other bachelor officers at the post. Similar to the other building we just went into, there are two rooms on the back of this building, but they are both locked, so we won't go inside those two. Once again, you can see the scenery behind the fort. All right, now here is the parade ground for the fort with a flagpole in the center. There would have been buildings on the other side for the enlisted men, but none of that survived. All right, there you can see the flagpole of the post, and behind it you can see what looks like mountains or very tall hills. The soldiers stationed at Fort Verde moved from their old post to the current Fort Verde on April 25th, 1872. These photographs from the Library of Congress show life around Fort Verde, including the fact that black soldiers, often referred to as Buffalo Soldiers, were also stationed here at Fort Verde. These photographs also show that the soldiers brought their wives, and some of them even had children at the fort. On April 10th, 1890, the order was given to close Fort Verde, and now all that remains is what can be seen at this state park. Here are some drawings from the National Archives of some of the buildings at Fort Verde that no longer exist and have been lost to time. Now let's take a look at the museum that is here at Fort Verde. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the visit to Fort Verde State Park. And until next time, see ya.